right. Welcome to the Life, Legacy, and Leadership Podcast. Today we have a special guest, the Jackson Delmer.
Hello. Oh, wow.
They love you.
That's
they
nice.
love you already.
People
He's
love
the
me.
GOAT Squad. Just to give you Jackson's pedigree, he is the former Broncos Senior Counselor.
That's right. 3 summers.
He is the current, well, as this airs, wrapping up his LC summer.
That's right.
All kinds of things. So we cannot wait to get into all of the things. The fact that he was only going to be a third-year JC and somehow he ended up a legacy, and how he got to camp, and who his infamous stepbrother is, and if he's fianced. All kinds of things to talk about.
Let's do it.
But before we get into that, we want to see how good Jackson is. We want to see where he ranks amongst the legends.
Wow.
So the way we're going to do that, Jackson, if you've listened to the podcast, we're going to play a game.
Okay, I'm ready.
In order to play a game, we play a Brookhill game because Brookhill podcast. 3 categories. You know the drill. All right. Songs, cabins, activities. You can bounce between all 3. It can be old. It can be new. As long as it's Brookhill relevant. All right. Tyler will unofficially judge this thing.
Okay.
He's our clock man. We've got Bird on the clock.
So you're going to ask a question.
No, I'm going to say, and you have 30 seconds to name any of those 3.
Oh, okay.
You have to name as many as possible. Fire away.
So you're going to say activities, cabins, or wait, what were the categories? Sorry, I'm blowing this.
Cabins, activities, and camp songs.
Okay.
You can go in all 3.
Gotcha.
Right? You don't have to stick in one. All right? But you have to name as many as you can in 30 seconds. Are you ready?
Yes.
You have 30 seconds starting now.
Broncos, Morgans, Mavericks, Apples, Clydesdales, Buckskins, Pacers, Walkers, Mustangs, Hackneys, Thoroughbreds, Palominos, Bays, Chestnuts, Pintos, Quick Quack Quaney, the Beaver song, the Bumblebee song, Yeah Man, wakeboarding, water rides, go-karts, horseback, riflery, archery, field sports, woodworking. Ooh.
I got 27 unofficially. Can we throw the leaderboard up here? I think that puts him up there in the top 4.
Whoa.
That is it. We have not had anybody break the top 4 in a while. So that officially ties you for 3rd place with Callan.
Let's go.
Your predecessor.
Wow.
The former cabin LC
That is
from
quite the honor.
2022. You did not quite catch the 30 Club. The 30 Club is Lindsey Perry, the GOAT, who spoke at church, I think. And then Anna, now known as Waller.
Right,
So,
Anna Waller.
Yep.
Dang.
All right. So anyway, that's pretty good company.
That was fun.
All right. How'd you get to camp? How'd this happen? How'd you get here?
Well, my stepmom actually came to Brookhill as a camper
Oh, no way.
way back in the day.
Okay.
Griffin is my stepbrother.
Yep.
We could talk about him in a little bit, but we have a photo of her in
We don't have to talk about Griffin.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll leave him out. She was in the Arabian bunkhouse way back then, and so the summer after me and Griffin's 6th grade year, we started going to all these different camps. We actually went to a wakeboard camp that summer.
Okay.
We went to a tennis camp, and then she sent us to Brookhill week 6.
Tennis camp.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, golf. It wasn't tennis, it was golf.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we hated it. It was the worst.
Okay.
We are not golfers.
No. I didn't see you as a tennis guy either. So.
Yeah. So we always came week 6 as campers, and that first summer, it was incredible. I was in the Buckskins with Drew Seal.
Yeah.
And
Seal.
it was so awesome. So I got saved that week. I was not a Christian before I came to Brookhill, and then after that first week, I was. And so, I came back to camp for the next 4 summers. I was a Hackney, then a Bronco, and I graduated from the Appaloosas with Gabe Metz as my counselor, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
And then, then I was a JC for 3 years.
And then we can go ahead and go there right now.
Sure. And so
You were calling it quits.
Yeah, I guess. I really thought that 3rd summer. So my first summer as a JC, I spent 1 week here. Then my 2nd summer, I spent another 1 week. So just 1 week first year, 1 week second year, and then that 3rd summer, I spent 4 weeks as a JC. and I spent 1 in support, and then 3 in the cabin, I think. And man, I was looking at the guys' staff because we were hanging out at night with all the guys on, the cabin counselors back then, and I was just watching them, and it was the kind of brotherhood that I really wanted. I mean, it was like nothing else. None of my friends were as close as they were. The connection they had, none of it was. It was all so shocking. I was like, wow. But because I was a JC, I wasn't there. I wasn't in it. I could see it. I could see all those guys having a good time, loving each other, being bros, being funny, and I just knew that I had to be back and doing that again. And so, yeah. Well, then all the wakeboarding stuff happened. Okay, so
yeah, because that was the summer that Griffin and I talked about wakeboarding,
right.
And I don't know that I knew the connection between the two of you at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I think I did by the end of your third summer.
I think so.
I did, for sure. But yeah, so we really were serious. Mike and I were serious about, we visited Houston after camp ended to go check these things out.
Yeah, so Griffin and I, we used to, right by our house in Houston was this place called Wake Nation. And it's a big cable park that people wakeboard at. It's like a zip line kind of that takes you around in a circuit. And there are all these ramps and rails, and super cool people go there. And so Griffin got really good at it. He does the flips, and he does all the spins and all the stuff. So I got good enough that I could do it, and that was enough for me. So he would go all the time. But then when we came to camp, there was one day where I was running around with Tyler Fincher doing support stuff, and you were out on the boat with one of your friends.
We had just gotten this new boat, right? I think it was the first year of the craze.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 2019, maybe?
This is summer 2019.
Yeah.
Well, you were out on the boat, and honestly, you were not doing so hot, Dave.
Was I trying to wakeboard?
Trying to wakeboard, yeah.
Okay.
And so I looked at you, and you were falling. You didn't have the basic fundamentals down. And so I start calling out from the shore, like, try this, do that. And then it was so cool. You had the guy swing the boat around and pick me up.
I was like, pick that guy up.
Yeah, just get him out here. So,
Get it, yeah.
So now I'm a JC on the boat with the CEO of Brookhill and his best friend. So there's a lot of pressure here. And so I start coaching, telling you about the ready position and all this stuff, how to hold your body. And
it worked. I got out of the water. I started moving in and out of the wake.
Yeah. So then your son Eli came out and he started going too. And I coached him up to do his first 360 behind the boat because he had been able to ride, but so I coached him to do a first 360 with a handle pass, and it was just, it gave me this crazy awesome feeling that like he couldn't do something, and then because I was there, I was able to coach him up and to lead him to being able to do something that he had never done before, and it just gave me this super awesome feeling. And not only that, but I think you said something like, if we have this as an activity next year, you got to come back and teach it. And so in my head, I was like, okay, it's my last week as a JC in my third year. We don't really have fourth-year JCs, so what's he saying? What's he saying right there? And so I was, that planted a little seed that I had a future here, at least with wakeboarding.
Yep.
So, yeah, then, I applied to be on all summer after my first year of college, my freshman year of college.
And at SMU?
That's right, yeah. So I actually just graduated from SMU with a degree in civil engineering.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. Which came into handy. It came in handy.
For sure.
So that next summer when you apply, and first off, just to say, the one thing I saw on you was the coaching.
Mm-hmm.
You were coaching so well. Griffin could ride the wakeboard, but Griffin, I saw would get frustrated with people because he's like, "Come on, guys, just flip, just glide across the water like I do, right?"
Yeah.
which is pretty typical when people are really, really good at stuff. And it's not that he wasn't a good coach. I'm not saying Griffin's not a good coach, but
sure.
You just explained it better, and I think people who aren't quite as skilled doesn't come quite as natural or a little better at that. But that's what I saw in you, and for me, it wasn't some ploy to get you back. It was we needed wakeboard teachers.
Right.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
And so then 2020 hits, and you come on staff.
Yeah.
And
well, I
the
thought,
installer. Go ahead. Sorry.
So I thought that I was gonna get hired back and be the wakeboarding guy. Back
Only
then, we had like a horseback guy.
Okay.
Who was on staff, and all he does is the horseback.
Okay.
So I thought that I was going to get asked back just to do wakeboarding and then to, work on other stuff the other time. And then, y'all gave me a bunkhouse, which was just so awesome. So I didn't even expect that.
That was beyond your expectations.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it was the best thing. Jason Ross DM'd me on Instagram and told me which bunkhouse he was giving me. So anyway, that was super, super awesome. But yeah, then, so it's 2020 and the pandemic has hit. We figured out how to have camp.
Right.
But
we've ordered the wake tower. The wake tower is here. It's on property. We got everything ready for it to be installed. Mm-hmm. Power's there. Everything's there. The only problem is the installer's out of Canada, and they said you can't come in the country.
That's right. Yeah, you couldn't cross national boundaries during 2020, and so the stuff that I had been learning at school really came in handy because they had given you some CAD files, some like 3D images of what needed to be built, and we had all the pieces, and we're looking at them like, I don't know where this goes. I don't know what this screws into or that cable. Or
no, it's because we had the first version's instruction manual, and we had the second version's parts.
Oh, yeah.
It was the first one that had dropped in the U.S., and that was why we couldn't just look at the instruction manual and figure out, because there were parts on the ground that weren't in the instruction manual.
Yeah, so confusing. So anyway, I was able to get in and zoom in on all the right places to figure out where these wires needed to go, and we hooked up this awesome wake tower that's still there today. We got it. We put it up and down for every season, and it's holding strong.
This year 4, we've literally changed out a few
pieces.
Yeah, a few pieces, like nothing.
Yeah. So that was super cool, and that story ended up helping me get a job in the real world.
That's crazy.
So we can talk about it later, but
yes.
But yeah, so that summer we were still doing 4 activities back then.
Okay.
And I taught first activity wakeboarding and second activity wakeboarding and third activity wakeboarding. And then Griffin would come in to teach fourth.
Okay.
And so what was really cool about that for me was, we have activities at Brookhill like archery and riflery and these things that have been around forever and ever. And minute by minute in those activities, we know what we're doing. It's, it's this, we're playing this game, or we're doing this, a 7-minute setup talk or whatever. It's all just been the same.
Right.
Well, I got to come in and figure out this new activity, that no one had done before. And I built up this skill of like being able to drive the wake tower and all this stuff to figure out the right number of kids for the activity. So it was really cool. I think one day I counted how many kids I went through my wakeboarding activity, and it's in the hundreds. I mean, I've just taught so many kids how to wakeboard, and I got really good at saying the right words and showing them what to do so that they could get up and do something they've never done before, which is wakeboarding. And by now, the kids come back and I ask, all right, how many of you guys have wakeboarded at Brookhill before? And a lot of them raise their hands. So we're really building this cool thing that kids are coming back to every year. And so, yeah, I always thought it was really cool that I got to teach so many kids a brand new activity, that no one had really done before.
Well, now 4 years later, we're seeing like they're good. They're jumping off the ramp.
Oh,
they're doing 360s. They're doing these things. I mean, not all of them, but the ones who have been coming back year after year. And the cool thing is, like you said, you got to help build something that's going to be here a long, long time at Brookhill and pioneer it, pioneer the activity. So you're going to go down in Brookhill history. All right.
Let's go.
The brothers Jackson and Griffin. So I love that. You spent a lot of hours on the top of that tower.
Yeah, tightening stuff up.
Tightening stuff up. I'm tightening. Oh, we did that wrong. Let's try that again. But by the time it was done, it was solid. It's a pretty cool story because 24 hours before like Camp 1 started is when we got it working.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, that I think it took us a month to put that thing up. So anyway, it really was 2 weeks before y'all got there, and then 2 weeks while y'all were there. So anyway, that was really cool. I want to talk to you about leadership today. That leadership learned is what we're going to talk about. But wanted to just kind of fast forward here. You interned this last year.
That's right.
At a company, and they have now hired you.
Yeah. So they gave me a full-time offer to come and work right after this summer in Dallas, which is where I went to school. But yeah, to be a full-time civil engineer in Dallas.
Okay. No big deal. No big deal.
Pretty cool.
And not only that, you're not going to be by yourself because you are engaged.
That's right. Yeah. I proposed to my girlfriend of 4 years back in February.
Okay.
She'd never been to Brookhill.
That's right.
But yeah, she's great, and we're getting married this December 2023.
Congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations. That's incredible. Uh-oh. The audience loves you.
They love it.
All right, so let's talk about leadership learned. You know, the one thing that I love about you, Jackson, is you soak up knowledge. I mean, that's just who you are, and maybe it wires into the engineering, civil engineering type stuff. You pay attention to details. That's definitely an engineering type thing. But, anytime we do leadership stuff, anytime we're doing challenges, you love to write things down. And so I thought today you were going to be the best discussion we've had on any of these. So, all right, so let's start it off. What are some things? You've got the book there. Let's kind of hold up the book of knowledge right here.
This has my last 3 summers of all the staff training, lead weekend, Brookhill content in it.
In one book.
Yeah, so that's
incredible.
This is how many pages I've got left at the bottom, and all of this is, every page is full of good stuff.
Well, that must mean your time here is don't have much time left because you don't have enough.
I was worried I was going to run out of space, but I just stopped taking notes this year. So. I know it all.
That's the way to fix that.
Yeah, slow things down a little bit.
That's right. So what are some of the highlights, as we talk about leadership learned here today, because legacy leadership, for you, obviously the legacy of what you've done in the Broncos and helping with wakeboarding, obviously that legacy is going to continue as you continue to own your area and the job that you're going into. But what are some of the leadership concepts that you are going to be walking away here from? Anytime I speak, Jackson you're always, coming back with this one-liner and that one-liner. And so what are some of the takeaways from leadership that we want to throw out in discussion?
Man, so one of the biggest ones that I use here as the cabin LC and that, I'll use definitely in the future is we say to inspect what you expect. And so obviously I'm in charge of a lot of things here. So I got to make sure the cabins are running the way they're supposed to be, cleaning the way they're supposed to be, that the guys are connecting with their kids in the right way. And so we have all these expectations for them. And so then it's my job to go, look and inspect if they're actually doing what we expect them to do.
Good.
And so that's a lot of what I do here at Brookhill. And people inspected what they expected of me when I was a cabin counselor, when I was a JC. And so now, since I'm, the cabin LC, I get to do that for people. But one thing that's cool is I know now that, okay, the people above me in the real world, in my job, they're going to inspect what they expect. Or I'm expecting them to do that.
Right.
So I know that they're probably going to come and look and fine-tune my, look at my work. And so that means to me that I gotta have it right,
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's good. That's really good. What else? Let's turn the pages in here. I mean, this is the book right here. He remembers everything that we've talked about.
Yeah. I've been telling people at this point, almost any time you guys are talking, I've heard so many, hours of Brookhill content,
right?
Brookhill staff meetings or church services that I've kind of just got these categories of like, okay, he's saying this, but really he's talking about seeing the need,
right? Okay,
or serving. So I just like I can.
Did you write these categories down?
I can speak the Brookhill. No, I didn't really write them down.
I should have wrote those down.
Yeah. Okay, let's find a good staff meeting.
Not one that Jason did.
I guess I'll turn the page. Ooh, okay. This is a good one that you said once. You said in a Brookhill church last year that relationships are started with words in a moment, and they're built with depth over time and consistency over time. So you were saying that about, I think, like personal relationships.
Sure, absolutely.
When we meet in the bunkhouse, when a camper comes into the bunkhouse, we have words.
Good.
Well, that's all we have. Hey, how are you?
How's it going? Where are you from?
What's your name? All this stuff.
Yeah.
And then, I've been a counselor here for a long time. I've seen a lot of campers grow and be more mature and then come back and be red T-shirts. And we've built a relationship because the consistency is like we're still here. We're still at Brookhill. Right. We're being, we're serving here. And that consistency over time has built a relationship with those people. And so, yeah, that's super good. But, it's also the same way with the Lord, right?
Yep.
Like it starts with words in a moment, and then the real fruit, the real relationship gets built, consistency over time.
Mm-hmm.
In a romantic relationship.
Sure.
Words in a moment,
Right.
Let's go on a date.
Right.
And then consistency over time, are we going to make it through this difficulty, or are we just going to break it off and not push through? Or are we going to be consistent? You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
it's good.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about in our last staff meeting, and I'll pull this up.
Ooh, that was a good one.
I felt really, it was kind of a timely staff meeting, but we're talking about mission over me. That was our assignment, and talking about being mission-minded. One of my favorite things, I told you, I said, this is going to be one that could make the book. I said, character is built in the completion, not the promise.
It is so good.
And, as we're talking about as leaders, anybody can promise and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. We see it in relationships, till death do us part,
right.
But that character is built in completing the promise, not making the promise.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think a lot of people like to start things. They like to say, absolutely, this is who I'm going to be. But then the fulfillment of that word is difficult. I knew that was a Jackson one right there. That was one that he was going to write down. So you got another one.
Yeah, we talked about putting the cause before the craving. That's another one that kind of goes right along with what you said.
Well, that was Steve Sexton.
Mm-hmm.
That was a couple summers ago. That was really good. And that was kind of in that mission-minded. I think I referenced that too in this last talk of Steve saying cause of a craving. So what are some thoughts he had from that one?
Oh, man. In this one, this was so good. So he asked the question right at the end, is Brookhill going to be a highlight of your life or a catalyst for your life?
Oh, that's good.
It's so good because, not everyone can spend 4 summers here and become an amazing leader at Brookhill.
Sure.
But what you can do with your time at Brookhill is either look back and say, that was really fun, what a cool thing that I did, and that's it. You can leave it behind. Or what you can do is take it and let it be the diving, the launching board that you start to build your own Brookhills everywhere. In your family, you're building a Brookhill type place where it's fun, connection, Jesus, right?
Mm-hmm.
At wherever your area is at work, you might not be the boss, but is your area fun? Like, are you having connections with these people? And so, yeah, I do not want. I've had a lot of awesome special moments at Brookhill. I mean, this is my favorite place.
Sure.
That's why I'm back over and over again, is because it's developed me so much. And so to think that this is the only time I'm going to get something like that, I don't want that to be the case.
That's right.
I want to go and even find more somewhere else, build more somewhere else. And, that was really when Steve Sexton said that, it was challenging because it was like, man, I don't want to be the guy who lets it be in the past.
That's good.
Not that we're living in the past or anything, but just growing,
I don't want to live on old stories. If all you have is old stories, it means you're not really creating anything today. And that's what I see when people are only living on their old stories and what I did. You want to keep growing. Hetty always used to say, build your own Brookhill, right? You want to keep growing. You want to, and as you said, fun, connection, Jesus, that's obviously that's our motto here. It's our vision. It's what we say that we do. But, even in a place like your engineering place, it can be fun, connection, and excellence. Because I think Jesus produces excellence in us. But if you were at maybe not necessarily a ministry place, fun, connection, excellence, could be a great, I just think that works, I just think that really, really works. What else? What you got?
We always talk about owning your area. That's one of the categories for sure, owning your area. So wherever you are, is it, at Brookhill, it looks like, are we picking up the trash? Are the life jackets zipped up? Is everything where it's supposed to be? Because that's your area. You don't want your place to look bad. We have to be excellent. We have to, be operating really well. So we got to own our area. Is your bunkhouse in order? Or do you have kids that aren't on your page? You got to own your area. That's your spot. Nobody else can come and run your bunkhouse for you. Like that's you. You got to do it right. And so in the real world, like obviously in your room, that's one of your areas, your bedroom at home. Are you owning that, or does your mom own that? Does your mom own your laundry, or is that your area that you want to take responsibility for?
That's it.
Because the more responsibility you take, the stronger you're going to get. You know what I mean?
The more maturity
sure.
the more mature you become.
Mm-hmm.
The less things you're responsible for. And what I see is, people have to be told, or others are having to do it for them. If somebody's having to come behind you and do your job, you're not owning it.
Mm-hmm.
You should be exceeding expectations, not just meeting expectations. So that's really good. I love that. Owning your area, taking ownership, which means taking responsibility for mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And that is tough for people. So, what's something else? What you got? Leadership learned here today. That's what we're talking about with the Jackson Delmer.
Okay, here we go. So, dang. All right, here's a line from you during staff training, okay? The thoughts can come like this. I'm not good enough to lead. I'm not worthy, at camp. I'm not worthy to talk to kids about Jesus. I'm not worthy to act in this role. And you said, it's not about what you can do, but what he can do through you. He called you, anointed you, and appointed you. That reminds me of something. There was a guy in the Reformation, Martin Luther.
Absolutely.
He said this line. He goes, "What God requires, God provides."
That's good.
So that we're supposed to be vessels, the new wine, and not be old wine vessels, and those kinds of things. And so, it's so cool that what He asks from us, the will He has for our lives, the vision, and the plan for our lives, what He asks of us, He gives what we need to do it.
That's right.
That's part of His grace. That's part of all of His stuff. God appoints you and anoints you to do that thing.
It's probably the biggest thing I think that holds people back is they feel unworthy. I'm sure there was times where, like you said, you expected to be the full-time wakeboard guy. I can't run a bunkhouse. I would love to.
Right.
And I see that with whether it's campers becoming junior counselors or junior counselors becoming all summer or whatever they might be. It's, hey, I'd love to be a junior counselor, but I'm not worthy of the red T-shirt. Or I would love to be all summer, but I'm not good enough. And it's like, well, nobody is. But when you submit to God's plan and God opens the door, God's not going to open a door that you can't handle.
Right.
And you may not feel like you can handle it, but over time and over growth. But that's the biggest thing that holds people back is I'm not worthy. I can't do that. And obviously that doesn't mean we just live however we want and God's going to, keep using, we obviously have to make sure that we're putting ourselves in a right, healthy place in relationship with Him. But still, it's that perfection. I think we always feel like we're not perfect enough and we'll never be perfect enough. We'll only be forgiven enough.
At a place like Brookhill, there's just so much training that happens. I mean, I was thinking about it literally today that all of the moments of training that I've been through to get to this point where I am, JC like through the 3 JC trainings I went to.
Yeah.
Then a whole year of staff or a whole summer of staff training, and then staff meetings, and then another one, and another one, and another one, and like at this point, you guys have just built so much into us LCs and into the leaders that I just feel like when I look out at the people in their areas, I think they're so valuable because I can't be there doing their thing. I've got my own stuff. You know? So I'm just like, I'm so glad that everyone we have is trained so much to do the stuff that they need to.
Well, then now you taught training.
Yeah.
This summer.
Yeah. So now we taught JC training.
So that put you in a whole different perspective.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Now it's like, oh yeah, I'm thankful they're trained. I'm glad I told them the right stuff to say.
Right.
If I didn't, then they wouldn't have been able to do it.
And then when you're the one doing the training, when you start leading leaders, it makes you a better leader. It has to. Because you're not going to be a good leader of leaders if you're not leading well, And so I'm sure that challenged you, right? As you're challenging the JCs to do this, the X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. definitely. And even more with like maybe our cabin leadership, our head of Hill and the guys helping out, just because they're like Dawson right now is the head of Hill and he's my same age. And so having to lead him and guys like Jet and Hayden, they are, they're so close to me that now I'm carrying this title of LC and I have to be able to back that up and lead them.
Right.
In all the ways that they need to. I can't just be friends with them anymore. Now I have to be their LC as well, kind of their counselor.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I found another one.
Okay.
This is from Jason, so sorry you have
no,
to listen to that.
let's go. Jason knows a couple things.
Man, he said, your attitude determines everything. I think he actually put it, your attitude determines your altitude.
Yeah, how high you can go.
Mm-hmm.
Your attitude will hold you back.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. No, that is so good. We talk a lot about the Enneagram here.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I love about the Enneagram is it talks about what you are when you're unhealthy, which is a bad attitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
In health, we're all on another level. In unhealth, we're being drugged backwards, and so that I see that so many times, that attitude, a bad attitude, is when we get unhealthy.
Right.
Whether it's a situation with somebody or tired or, whatever it might be, just prideful or, whatever.
Yeah, and I think that goes into another category of Brookhill stuff, which I would say is the seeing the greatness before the lack. We're talking about attitude, but really we're talking about not seeing the lack.
Right.
Because sometimes you're in your flesh and you just want to cut and you want to see that negative, and it's dragging you down. Or your thoughts about somebody, it's that attitude about them that is holding you back. It's holding them back in your minds. I think there's a John C. Maxwell book. He's got the laws of leadership and those kinds of things. Well, one of them is
4,000 laws of leaders.
Yeah, the law of the lid is one of them.
Oh, lifting the lid. Yeah.
So that. It's kind of like that, I guess, determining your altitude.
Oh, a bad attitude will cap your leadership. Mm-hmm. It will, it will put a lid. It'll put a top on a ceiling on your leadership. Yeah. You cannot go above a bad attitude. Now, we're just so negative today. Everything is so negative. We're pessimistic. We're critical. We're negative about people. It's just crazy how negative we get when it comes to people, and in circumstances that attitude will hold us back.
Yeah, in this session, Jason was talking about how complaining and that some of that negativity, he said it comes from false expectations.
That's right.
So your expectations about what was going to happen were wrong. And it didn't go that way, so now you're upset about it. You have a bad taste in your mouth. Maybe you thought you were going to get some praise or you were going to be encouraged or something, and then somebody else gets that, or nobody gets it, or you don't get the thing you want. It came from those false expectations.
Yeah, I expected this to be more about me. I expected this to be more about...
That's probably most of what it is.
Right.
We want it to turn selfish.
That's it. I expected to have a better time. For the better time to happen for me. Not that I would have to create a good time, right? I expected this to be easier, not have to work for it, right? It's these comfort expectations, I think.
And so Jason said the way to fix that is expect to serve wherever you are, and then you'll never be disappointed.
So good.
Expect to have to be servant of all. And I think that could translate really well to the real world in a real business, not just at Brookhill. At Brookhill it works really well because there's always something to do, something to pick up. And so, if you come and you think it's about you, well, no, we've got this and this to do. So you should have expected to come and serve, and then you wouldn't have had any complaining to do. Nothing would have gone the other way. But I think in the real world, to expect to serve wherever I am is like, that's got to get done. Cool.
Right.
I'm the guy. Or, so I just want to make myself available. And then, at Brookhill, the better people want to be a cabin counselor. They want to be, they want to be on all summer staff. Well, the best way to do that is to serve being a JC. You know what I mean? Is to be the best JC. And so, the promotion comes after kind of that service, I guess. Does that make sense?
And Brookhill translates to the real world,
Mm-hmm.
Because I just feel like people are trying to figure out what's the least I can do and get by.
Mm-hmm.
What's the least I can do, get by, clock in, clock out, and not, how great can I make this? And I think as you approach your new job with that mentality, because there's always going to be here's the way we've always done it, and it's like, yeah, but maybe there's a little better way. Maybe there's a better system. Maybe that worked a little while ago, but now is there a better way? Is there a higher way? How much better can we be? So I just think that's but that's what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So. Got another one in that book?
I'm trying to remember. I think this is from some Turkey Days, but I think you've talked about character, like when leaders turns out they had bad character.
Mm-hmm.
Something like the character didn't match the calling, or do you remember anything of what?
Well, I know hypocrisy is the death of leadership. If you don't have character, if you're a hypocrite, if you say one thing and do another, you are not going to, it's not going to work. But I was talking about the other day, you have to have character and giftings, because your giftings can take you to a place that your character, if you don't have the character, because character is what holds you, right? It's what grounds you. It's what keeps you humble when you start to have success as a leader. You get prideful. You look at me, I'm impressive, right? And then also your giftings can put you in circles that you need your character to hold you in, right? Put you around people that you start crossing lines that you didn't need to be. And so you just got to be careful, because the more you grow as a leader, the more temptation there is to get off base, right? And so I think you have to marry character and giftings. But, the Bible says that giftings and callings are without repentance. So what does that mean? It means your giftings are there whether you're following Christ or not, right? And that's why you see some people who are so gifted that just produce these amazing things, and then they fall just flat on their face. And it's like, how did you get so off base? A great example, you see these people that go pro in things, right? There's this amazing athlete, and they can't show up to practice. There's this amazing athlete, and they're addicted to drugs. It's like, really? You're like getting paid millions of dollars.
The character
You're at
didn't
the
match
apex.
the skill.
Yeah, but their giftings opened all these doors that their character didn't open those doors. Now, it's their character that's going to keep them there, right? I mean, that's why you got like a Tom Brady picked last, who has the character, right, to become the GOAT. He was Mr. Insignificant. And he outworked everybody, and that's that character piece. It wasn't that he wasn't talented. I mean, Tom wouldn't have been in the NFL if he wasn't talented,
right?
But some people's talent just flashes them so quickly up there, and it's like you really could not be addicted. You really, but that those two have to be married together. You have to have character and giftings, and if you're not working on your character, giftings are there, and I mean, you got to practice. I'm not saying your giftings don't need to be grown, but your giftings are raw, and that character is going to help grow them faster than anything.
So, what do you think? Do you think there are some people who build the character side of things, and then eventually lose that character? Like, how does that happen? Let's say with an athlete. Like, can you think of anybody who may have had the skill and the giftings and the character, but then, lost the character or something?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely see that. You see
it's a lot stronger though.
It is, but but it's easy to lose focus, and that's they had the character, but character is not something that you have one time. You have to hold on to it.
That's true.
Because you can throw it away. I always say character, your reputation, your integrity, your character takes a lifetime to build and a moment to throw away.
Yeah.
And so, you can say no 1,000 times, but that one yes is what got you. That's why I use this example. I walked past a lot of people and didn't punch them in the face, but I'm going to jail for that one person that I assaulted, right? It's like, that's right. It's not about how many times you're good, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That gets you in trouble. You can be on time to practice a whole lot of times, but you start being late, and the coach is still going to bench you. But it's so important. I love talking leadership. I know this. I mean, you love talking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I've grown a lot in my leadership at Brookhill. But I also listen to guys like Jocko.
Yes.
So I love the Jocko podcast. I've been missing out on him this summer because I've been busy at camp.
Absolutely.
So I'm ready to catch up back on him. But just the stories that he has, because he had this leadership experience fighting in a war, with real lives and real danger and all that stuff. And so the lessons and stuff that he's learned and what he's turned into, his whole thing is discipline equals freedom. So if we don't have the discipline, then it just all falls apart.
Well, his book is Extreme Ownership.
Extreme
Ownership. And I love the things that he talks about. In fact, this is going to be probably culture, extreme ownership. These are going to be a couple of our themes of this next lead weekend. I'm pretty pumped about it, the last weekend in February. But we're going to be taking some of that stuff that Jocko talks about, some culture builder things, like the culture. What I mean by culture is like leadership culture, like where you're working. Is it a lot of fun to work there? We're going to be doing some culture stuff, be looking at that. But, Craig Rochelle's a big one too. Do you listen to a lot of Craig's stuff?
He's got quick ones, so yeah,
okay.
I've listened to those every now and then.
Yeah, they're not long. The leadership stuff is
Jocko's
15, 20 minutes.
Jocko's
Jocko reads a book. Yeah, but Craig Rochelle, I love one of the things he says, people would rather have a leader who's real than a leader who's right. That's so good. People would rather follow a leader who is always real rather than a leader who is always right. I mean, that's the good stuff.
That is really good. Yeah, I like Craig Rochelle's stuff because it's, Jocko's is very military.
That's true.
And it's easy to see what's going on, but sometimes it's hard to think about what does this look like just in where I am. But Craig Rochelle's, his are pretty applicable, just straight on to your thing.
Absolutely.
And yeah, you guys always talk about leaders are learners, know? And so if you're not reading the books and if you're not, when I started reading actual books instead of just watching stuff and books are where it's at.
They are.
Readers are leaders.
They are. They are because, you get empty after a while. And I know for me personally, I was so busy that I didn't have time. And if you find yourself too busy to grow, it's a dangerous place. Because you have to grow. You have to grow. There's no middle ground. You're either regressing or growing, right? Your muscles are either growing or they are regressing.
Sure.
They're either going backward. There is no, my muscles they're just kind of staying right there. And it's the same in your leadership. And people don't want to follow a dry leader, someone who's empty. They don't want to follow an empty leader. They want to follow a leader who's always in front. And the reason they're always in front is because they're growing and pushing. But, you can outgrow your leader. If your leader stops growing, then your followers can outgrow them, and then that's not your leader anymore.
Right. Yeah. They're the leader.
They're the leader. And so if you're too busy to read, if you're too busy to study, one of my favorite things this last couple of years, I've started getting back into the tennis game. So I've done 2 years now of tennis, getting back into the tennis game, but it's an hour and 15 to drive over there. So that's 2.5 hours.
Good time.
So I usually do about 3 days a week. That's 2.5 hours, 3 days a week, so you're looking at 7.5 hours. Well, that's an audio book.
Oh, yeah.
That's an audio book.
For sure.
Or that's, that's some guys, that's 2 podcasts. So those podcasts get going a long time. But that's an audio book. And people say, well, I don't have time. I think we all have time. We all have the same amount of time. In fact, it's not like money. You can say I don't have money, but you can't say I don't have time.
Right.
You're not making time.
Yeah.
And I love it when people say I don't have time. I always say, you're not making time.
Yeah. And so that reminds me of something that Jocko says about mentors. And so having mentors, I have a lot of mentors at Brookhill. You are one of those people. Jason is one of those people. I mean, they are just, you guys have been consistency over time, right? Consistency over time. That's what we talked about earlier. And so just for years now, you guys have been, you've had the integrity and the leadership and the challenge. You challenge me. You guys know me, all that stuff. So really, really awesome mentor relationship here. But some people are like, I don't have anyone like that. And so one time somebody asked Jocko, I don't have any mentors in my life who can really push me. And Jocko goes, well, people wrote books. Like the greatest military leaders of all time. They wrote books so that you could learn leadership that they spent their lifetime learning. You know what I mean? And so these guys, and even today we've got Jocko and Jordan Peterson and whoever, they're putting
there's no excuse today.
They're putting out stuff so that you can learn and be challenged and get your toes stepped on, called to more, and that just old books and people who lived their whole life being awesome leaders. They wrote books so that you could understand what they learned. So I don't know. That's what books hold is all that knowledge that somebody wrote down for you, not just for somebody. Like they can be your mentor even if you don't know them because you can read what they learned, what they wrote.
Well, you can have excuses or results, but you can't have both. And we would rather explain why we're not doing what we're convicted to do. Mm-hmm. Man, I would be amazing, but there's no mentors around me, right? I mean, that just, it makes you feel good about why you're not producing, right?
Right.
It makes you feel good about, the reason I'm coming up short is because I'm a victim of this and that and this and that. And no one's saying that you're lying. No one's saying that that's not a hardship you have. It's just there's just no victims accomplishing great things, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, do you hear these stories? I love the Will Smith movie Pursuit of Happiness. Do you hear these great stories of of people that didn't overcome anything? No, it's the great stories are the ones who overcame the most.
Right.
I mean, the Bible is full of men and women.
100%.
Right? Esther could have been a victim, Joseph could have been a victim.
Your favorite.
Joseph's my favorite. Joe's my favorite. Victor or victim, period.
Oh, yeah.
Which one's it going to be? I don't have any mentors.
Joseph took extreme ownership over his circumstances.
Over slavery.
Come on.
He was sold. He was human trafficked.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it was.
It's crazy.
He literally was. And his response was, I'm going to be the best. Extreme ownership. Mm-hmm. I mean, you talk about victimhood, and we live in America and we're victims.
Right.
Right? And I'm not saying that doesn't mean that more people don't have it, that people don't have it tougher than others. Some have it really, really tough. Mm-hmm. But you can still be a victor. That just means you have a better story. That means your movie deal is going to be bigger than theirs, Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just excuses. But you're right. I mean, you think about the founders. They had you hear them quote John Locke, right? The founders had their books that they read.
Yeah, that's a good point. They weren't making stuff up, They were building.
And they didn't have podcasts. They didn't have YouTube. They didn't have TikTok. They didn't have Instagram. They have Reels.
Uh-huh.
They
had one book.
They had one book. And it was boring and had no pictures. Yeah. And they built America.
And overcame the British Empire.
Right. They didn't have air conditioning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they overcame a lot. They were not going to be victims.
They had muskets.
To that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, and we just feel better when we got an excuse.
Yeah. I would say the victor mentality and stuff that you guys have been talking about for the last couple of years has been so huge. I think in 2020, one of the things you would always talk about was if you're having a bad time in your circumstances, then you can either leave it, survive it, or lead it better.
That's it. Those three.
Mm-hmm. So either you can get out. Sometimes you can't get out. Like if it's you're 16 and you live at your house and you don't like it. Sometimes you can't really get out. You just got to wait a few more years, which is to either survive it, just hang out,
hang in
push
there
through.
That's it.
Just hang in, or to lead it better. And
what could you be doing better?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you say all the time, it takes one leader. It just takes one person to step up and say, no, this is what we're doing, or we're not doing this anymore. That can be hard in your family. I get that. So that could be super hard if you're a kid in your house. So when you get older, so I just graduated college. I'm 22. I just graduated college, and I signed the lease on my first apartment last week.
Okay.
So I'll be moving in 11 days.
11
I'll move
days.
into my first apartment. So
welcome to paying bills.
I know. Yeah.
So it doesn't stop from here.
At this point, I'm owning a lot of the situations I'm in. I'm not really dependent on my parents anymore or whatever. So I get to lead all my situations better. At my job, I don't really want to leave my job, and I don't want to survive my job. I don't want to just have to survive it. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to lead it well.
That's it.
So, in my apartment, I'm going to lead it better. I'm not just going to, survive and those kinds of things. So, there are challenges. Just the fact that you guys told us you can overcome challenges. I think that's what you talked about last year was the other side.
There's another side.
When you're young, you don't know that there's another side to the storm.
No, you don't have enough life experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't have enough strong victories, I guess, to feel like, okay, this is tough and difficult what I'm dealing with, but I know that there's another side. So people get lost. Jason this year's been talking about the fog. When the fog rolls in, a lot of stuff, you start thinking crazy, and you start to forget that there is another side. And so, man, it was just so. I think that's some of the stuff that built me up the most over the last few years is when you guys would say stuff like that and say, look. Because at Brookhill, it's a summer camp, right? We are doing awesome, fun stuff. I get to teach wakeboarding and those things. I mean, we are not on the struggle bus at Brookhill. But while we're at Brookhill, you guys told us over and over again, because we know out there it gets real and it gets difficult.
Right.
And so you guys just told us you are strong enough. Keep going. There is another side to this thing. The victory side, You don't have to let the stuff take you down. And I love all the Bible verses that go stand firm.
Yep.
Those gas me up because I don't have to, and listen, the strength isn't your own. Like we said earlier, what God requires, God provides. And so you can stand firm on what He is holding you up. You know what I mean?
That's right.
The other side is because He carried you through to the other side.
It's victories that grow us. But you can't have a victory without an opponent. And I think we don't want opponents.
That's good.
Yeah, we have to fill up the rest of this paper here.
Yeah, where's my pen?
But we want to face no adversaries. We want to face no opponents. But, anytime you get a victory, anytime you get a win in your life, it takes you to another level. It does. It just, it boosts you. But you can't have wins without losses, and you can't have wins without the possibility of losses, and you can't have wins without opponents. And the greater the opponent, the greater the victory. And so I think it's important to have people in your corner that are saying, you got this. You've got this. You need those people to say there's another side. You need those people that say victory is possible. You need those people, and it just takes a little encouragement.
Definitely.
But when we're island people, when we're isolated, when we're by ourselves, I think the worst thing you can be is by yourself. It's the worst thing because all you're left with are your thoughts, and your thoughts are they're rarely positive. They're rarely encouraging.
Yeah. Oh, here's you gave that sermon during the 2-week session last year, which is where we are right now.
Okay.
The 2-week session is called There's Another Side. He said 3 steps to the other side.
Oh, what were they?
You have to get unstuck. So Yeah,
if you're sitting on the bank, you're not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm. You got to get in the boat and move forward.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's this story of that they're trying to cross this lake and there's a storm.
Right.
They're trying to get to the other side of the
That's
lake.
right.
There's a big storm and they get afraid.
Yep.
The disciples get afraid with Jesus. And so, you said the second one. So the first one, you have to get unstuck.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get moving. The second one, to give it some time.
Yeah.
The storm has to run its course. But the storms don't last forever. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So even if it's bad, we've had some crazy storms this summer. You know, stuff's been getting destroyed and blown to bits and all this stuff. But they all
not like bunkhouses or anything.
Right, just stuff.
Storage boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The storm has to run its course. Got to keep going. And then number 3, you got to get the right people in your boat.
Yeah.
So Jesus was the right person for them. So
that's right.
Is Jesus in your boat?
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You got to surround yourself with people. There is another side. And in the middle of the storm, you feel like the rest of my life is going to be like this.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of my life is going to be a storm.
Right.
And that's, you're just not rational in the middle of a storm. And that's why you need people to say, you got it, keep going. Okay, I do. Or people to say, hey, I've been right where you're at.
Yeah. And I think that's really what was so helpful, is because I haven't gone through crazy storms like that. Some people by my age probably have gone through and seen victory on the other side. But yeah, after I graduate college, I'm figuring things out on my own. I had to sign up for an internet plan the other day, so I just, I don't know. I'm just signing up for stuff now.
You're paying a lot of bills.
So, just to have somebody who is on the other side of their 20s or the other side of their 30s, who can say, yeah, just do it, push through, you'll be all right. And I just flipped 2 pages back. This was in your 2-week staff meeting last year. You said we need to have a grit mentality. Everyone gets tired, but not everyone pushes through.
Yeah.
What you built in us at Brookhill was grit, I think, and that is just so helpful to know that I have. It's such a strong word, grit. I love that.
It's probably one of the things we lack the most because it's grit that faces an opponent and keeps going, right? It's grit that doesn't quit. It's grit that faces something. But we're really good quitters today. We're just not really good gritters, But grit is where it's at. Mm-hmm. So, man, I love talking about. This is what Jackson. This is just a glimpse of what Jackson and I do when we hang out. We sit here and we talk leadership. We debrief leadership back and forth. Mm-hmm. And this is, I knew that this is what our conversation was going to be about today. Is leadership learned, and I think you and I could sit here and just talk about it all day long. Yeah,
well, I figured out I used to sit in church and think I could remember all the points of the sermon, and like in high school and stuff, I used to sit there and not take notes at all, and just think I could remember, or I would keep the idea or something. But I started to realize that if you had asked me an hour after the sermon was over what the 3 points were, I just had no idea.
Right.
And so I came to camp, and on all summer staff, it is expected that you take notes. At staff training, we are people who take notes.
Right.
And so that built this notes-taking habit in me. And so when I got back to I was at SMU and I'm going to church, I started to realize that God could speak to me through anybody who's talking, especially at church, right? That's the place. So why would I not be ready to write it down? I don't want to forget anything that he's trying to tell me. I don't want to forget anything that I need to know. So why would I not just write it down? So I'm a big notes guy these days.
I feel like it's a level of expectation. I feel like if you walk in here with a pen and paper, you're expecting to get something. Mm-hmm. And I feel like people who walk in without it, or I take notes on my phone. I used to do pen and paper, but then I wanted to transfer it to a sermon, and then I had to type it, and so I thought I might as well just type it on my phone. So that, for me, my phone doesn't distract me during a talk, so it doesn't bother me. Mm-hmm. And it's just your level of discipline or whatever. But it's are you approaching this with a level of expectation, or are you approaching this like, when is this going to be over? Because you're going to check out. You're either going to check in or check out when somebody's talking. And I think you always want to be somebody expecting God to speak to you because they're going to, guys can speak to you through anybody.
That's right. So, yeah, I mean, even now, I've been through so many staff meetings and so many cabinet counselor meetings with Jason and those kinds of things that I've heard these things before. I really have. And that's kind of what you expect of us,
That's right.
After a while, it should be like, okay, I get it, But I'm still in there taking notes because there could be something new. There could be a new perspective.
It's good.
And so I'm expecting to get something from whoever's talking to me,
Yep.
But yeah, some people have called me the Vault because sometimes you try to pull one over on us. You try to give us a meeting that. And I'm like, these points sound familiar, so I flip back through and I go, see, David, you said this before.
Yeah.
You said this in 2016 at Turkey Day, and
right,
I remember.
Right, yeah.
So.
No, it's only Jackson that gets me because I don't I try not to recycle from the last 3 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
I may go back fourth or a fifth, and it's only Jackson that can catch me on that. And so, but I never just grab it and go. I always will recycle it where you break it down and kind of redo it. But but like you said, it all kind of flows together. But I love that. But Jackson, man, I love hanging out with you. That's one of my favorite things about you is your depth. I love that you love to learn. Obviously, it's what is going to make you a great civil engineer. But man, we're proud of you. We appreciate you being on the podcast, hanging out with us today. Mm-hmm. The Jackson Delmer Bronco Legacy.
Leadership learned.
Leadership learned. Life, legacy, and leadership with Jackson. Thank you.